My name is Eric Stine, and I am the Vice President of Winemaking at Foley Family Wines. The major task that I have is, number one, making sure that wine quality is paramount, but also along with that is really making sure that all of our wines are cost effective, that our price points are correct and our cost of goods are correct, and our inventories are correct. My role here, I took this position on fairly recently, 2 years ago. Prior to that, I was one of the Foley family wine makers. In that role, I was specifically charged with handling all of the inventories, all of the costs, all of the things that I just mentioned, just for one winery. Now I do it for 14. The first thing that I noticed when I took on the role was that not all of the winemakers were managing their inventories correctly. That was a mandate that I put out to all of the winemakers, but policing that was very difficult. And so what I was able to work with Business Impact on was including bulk wine inventory in our reporting. And with that, it made policing very easy, and it also made decision-making very easy. This is basically the same report that I was spending hours creating or generating each week in Excel prior to having this system. I work closely with our Vice President of Sales, together figuring out and planning our needs, and depending on how a brand is either expanding, hopefully, or if it is retracting and it looks like our inventories are building up, then it's really the transparency of being able to see those that makes us make more effective decisions. Winemaking is really all about the future. It's unlike most other beverage industries where we have a delay in coming to market, right? Most of the wines need to be aged, and because of that, you're looking at several years worth of inventory that you have to plan for. Without transparency of seeing everything that you have all at once, you can easily make a bad decision and wind up either putting too much wine into bottle and holding it onto inventory, or an even worse scenario really is running out of stock, jeopardizing your relationships with your customers. Now, when a wine is bottled, for example, if there was a discrepancy in the dry goods for the bottling versus the gallons that were available, and there's some wine left over, that's a fairly regular occurrence. And so what used to happen was that wine would get stored in or put into some other container and basically get separated out, really might be blended into the next vintage, in which case it would sit around for an entire year before it found its home. Now, because I can see that that wine is still sitting there and I know that that bottling has already taken place, I can move that wine to another facility or find a home for it quicker. How dynamic the system is, the fact that it's always real time is so valuable. Especially if you are coming off of the Excel world, where you're relying on somebody to update that data. By its very nature, as soon as it's updated, it's out of date. If you can just understand the fields that you're looking for, and you know which department that information is probably going to be contained in, you can find it. And so there is very little, I think, of a learning curve. Working with you, Doug, was, I think, very easy. Most of it is done remotely, so there's not a lot of FaceTime that's needed. With my role, I'm on the road a lot, and so I'm not available at an office to actually sit down and do a lot of FaceTime anyways. The fact that I could communicate with you just via email or just by telephone, and then I would see results come back fairly quickly was very beneficial for me. The other thing that I think you've done especially well is made the ease of use. You've kind of thought through some of the potential problems that I might have not have pointed out to you to begin with. Features that were added on, for example, in the bulk wine sheet that we initially discussed that I hadn't asked for, but they were already there. So I think that that's a huge benefit as well, where you kind of foresee some of the, or anticipate some of the requests that the customer might have. Having dealt with a few software vendors in the past, there's not a lot of no from Business Impact. A willingness to find a way, I think, to get the information that we need, and not a lot of pushback, if you will, on how that can happen or if it can happen.